Denver Nuggets. Recently, PG-13 delivered some strong comments about failures to make adjustments under then head coach Doc Rivers when he joined the All the Smoke podcast. Rivers, of course, is now coaching the Sixers. So, Max, I'll ask you this. With the outcome of last season, do you think Kawhi should have regrets about going to L.A. and joining Paul George?
Not going to L.A., but insisting on Paul George, yes. Not only did they give up draft picks from here till eternity, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari can play. And they certainly wouldn't have done any worse with those guys. Second round of the playoffs on a team that won 48 games the year before, and you add Kawhi Leonard, just add Kawhi Leonard, don't take anything away. They'd have all those draft picks, all those players. They'd have gotten to the second round of the playoffs anyway, guys. Yeah, you should regret it. Paul George, I take no pleasure in saying this. And I wish Paul George wasn't bad in the playoffs, but he's a pale version of himself. He's just a shadow of himself in the playoffs. In the regular season, Paul George is not quite an MVP, but he's more than an all-star, right? He's not like a guy who maybe he'll make the all-star team. That dude is, as I say, a 4.5, like I said about Bradley Beal, right? He ain't just an all-star. But in the playoffs, he's not an all-star. He's maybe a rotation piece. That's not enough. You need a crime partner. LeBron has AD. LeBron, who's playing at MVP level, has another guy who's playing at an MVP level, right? Kawhi doesn't have that. So you need much more. Stephen A., when he targeted Paul George, said, I want to play with that guy, I get it. Two-way wings is probably the best thing you can do. LeBron and Dwayne Wade, Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? Like, that's tough to beat. So I get what Kawhi's thinking. But that's not Paul George. Paul George is a regular season stud who's a postseason dud. Yes, Kawhi should regret it.
Well, you can put it that way. I would say to you, I don't have a problem with Kawhi regretting it, but why don't we look at Kawhi? Why are we looking at Paul George? Paul George missed about 24 games last year. Kawhi Leonard missed about 15, if I remember correctly. The cohesiveness that they needed to establish wasn't quite there. Paul George has an excuse, though. He was coming off an injury. Kawhi Leonard, it was all about load management. He practiced when he wanted to. He played when he wanted to. He came out of the games when he wanted to. He had the complete support of management and ownership. And more importantly than that, when you're that superstar, two-time champion, a two-time NBA Finals MVP, particularly when you make the demands that he's made, private jets and everything else in between, being the prima donna that he came across as being, at least according to numerous sources in the league, the bottom line is that you got to be the one to be able to step up. No matter what struggles Paul George had, and I'm not here to deny that those struggles existed, because he averaged less in points in the postseason than he did in the regular season, less from the field, less from three-point range. All of those things are true, absolutely, positively so. And I'll get into Paul George in a little bit in terms of what he had to say about Doc Rivers. But I will tell you this, that didn't stop the Clippers from being up 3-1. Now, on many, many occasions, myself, you, and everybody else included, when LeBron got swept, what did we say? You couldn't get one game. You had my man imitating me on Instagram. One game. You couldn't win one game. Excuse me. That's what we were looking for from LeBron. How come we can't look for that from Kawhi Leonard? You up 3-1. It didn't stop you from getting past the first round. It didn't stop you from going up 3-1 in the second round. So how come I can't look at my two-time champion, who's a two-time NBA Finals MVP, who's got all of these requirements and all of these demands for his services? The Clippers didn't want to give up all those damn picks for Paul George, but Kawhi said, either you get him or I'm not coming. So if all of that's being the case, how come I can't rely on Kawhi to get me one game? One. So you could get to the conference finals for the first time in franchise history. He couldn't do that? That's what I'm looking at. So I don't want to hear about Paul George. I'm not saying and did not do what happened, and that's a fact. All I'm saying is, at the end, who caused all of that to happen? The guy that wanted it all, and you couldn't give me one game. What's up with that?
If you want to argue that Kawhi showed up small in Game 7, in the second half of a Game 7 that they needed to win, you're right. And I'm not absolving Kawhi. Well, because especially in the second half of a Game 7, I expect, Kawhi is going to turn it on. Mm-hmm. I get it.
Welcome back to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols, still here with Kendrick Perkins, Zach Lowe, and you just heard former Atlanta Hawk, current Jump analyst Vince Carter on our free agency special on Friday. And guess what, guys? I don't know, Zach. He might be giving you a run for his money. He was right about Gallinari, right about Rondo being Hawks targets. And another guy he mentioned is the subject of our first topic here, one of our favorite games, Something, Nothing, or Everything. Yes, free agent Bogdan Bogdanović has signed a 4-year, $72 million offer sheet with the Hawks. The Kings have until tomorrow to match that offer. If he stays with the Hawks, Vince Carter would be 3 for 4 on his predictions and reporting, Zach. So is this offer sheet something, nothing, or everything? And do you need to add Vince Carter to the reporting team here at ESPN?
Well, first of all, he was also right about Joe Harris. The Hawks would have loved to go after Joe Harris, but everybody knew he was going back to Brooklyn. The Bogdanović offer sheet is something. I actually really like his fit at Atlanta. I like it better than Danilo Gallinari, who's going to have to play a lot of small forward for them, and I don't necessarily love that. I like the idea of another really good ball handler on the wing who can get the ball out of Trae Young's hands a little bit and let Trae Young run around and set screens like Steph Curry does. Trae could be really impactful in that kind of role and give some other guys a chance to handle the ball. I think everyone's happier. The ecosystem works. So I really like this move by the Hawks, and now we just wait to see if the Kings match. And the Hawks made it nasty with like a trade kicker and stuff. I love when these offer sheets get nasty.
Rachel, Zach, Bogdanović to the Hawks will be everything. With Trae Young and Bogdanović, this might be the best scoring backcourt in the NBA. Bogdanović is a guy that teams have to prep for and shoot around and make sure they have a focal point on how to stop him. He is a walking bucket, and you pair him along a guy that's a level 4 scorer like Trae Young, it's going to be hard to stop them offensively. I don't care about how terrible they are on the defensive end. If you got this much scoring power in your backcourt, you have a problem. And then they could go with a 3-guard lineup where they have Rondo playing the point and have both of those guys playing off the ball. It could be serious. We could see a Splash Brothers, a lower version of the Splash Brothers down there in Atlanta, and I got Atlanta making the playoffs, even if Bogdanović don't come. But if he do come, they're going to make the playoffs and actually make some noise in the playoffs. That's how much of a factor he is.
So the question then, Zach, is are the Kings going to match, or is Bogdanović going to be an Atlanta Hawk next season?
Nobody knows. Everyone's asking me that question today. I think given that the Kings already orchestrated a sign-and trade for him that didn't actually work out, I would bet slightly against them matching. It's a lot of money, and they have a lot committed to Buddy Hield and now De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes and Marvin Bagley's come up. So I would bet slightly no, but no team likes to lose a really good player for nothing. So I think I'll say 60-40 no. I don't feel confident in it.
What do you think the Kings should do, Perk?
No, I think the Kings should match. You can't get rid of, look, you can't let a guy like this just walk. And I think with the Kings already giving the young kid Fox his money, you can't let this second option guy, a guy that shows you that he's a closer, a flat-out scorer, just leave your organization without trying to put up an effort. So I do think the Kings should match.
Well, we'll see what they do. They also have, of course, as Zach noted, other financial commitments. And let's get to one of those. Rising star De'Aaron Fox received a 5-year, $163 million maxed extension this past weekend. Fox less than 1 month shy of his 23rd birthday. So, Perk, is this extension something, nothing, or everything?
Rachel, it is everything. It is everything. They drafted Fox, and every single year this young man has gotten better. He's one of the most underrated point guards in the league, and he keeps getting better every single year. I think this is a right move by the Kings. They're moving in the right directions. It showed that they're invested into the guy that they draft as a lottery pick, and the sky's the limit for Fox, and I love him because he's a Texas boy, so I'm always rooting for him, and I'm happy for him. But he's a great starting point for this Kings organization.
It's everything, and it has to be everything because it's every damn dollar the Kings can offer him. It actually reminds me a little bit of the Nuggets deal with Jamal Murray, where it strikes you as a little early. It strikes some people as a little early, but this is a mid-market, small-market team that has to take care of its own guys. And I'm a De'Aaron Fox believer. I think he has talent. I think he can be a leader. That said, last year he got better at a lot of stuff, finishing in the paint, getting to the line, playmaking, but 29% from three. If that doesn't change, guys are going to go under picks against him. And I thought his defense kind of plateaued and maybe got a little worse. That said, if he can put together the improvements he had last year and improve those other parts of his game, then it all comes together and you have a potentially really, really special player. And I'm actually optimistic he can put it all together like that.
Well, if you're talking about a situational contractual comp in Jamal Murray, certainly the Kings would be happy if it ended up as well for them as it ended up for the Nuggets in that situation.
Right.
Lastly, I want to get to Fred VanVleet, who agreed to a 4-year, $85 million deal to re-sign with the Raptors. The deal includes a player option in the final year. It is the largest contract in NBA history for an undrafted player. So first, just a little congrats from all of us to Fred VanVleet. His expression is bet on yourself, right? So is it something, nothing, or everything, Zach, that Fred bet on himself, got those kind of numbers, and is going to return to the Toronto Raptors?
Obviously, it's everything. Isn't this what you want to see in sports? Undrafted, too little, not athletic enough, can't finish at the rim, blah, 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 blah. And he comes in and he's a flat-out stud. He's a winner. He's tough as hell. He's a character guy, and he's making $20 million a year. And just for kicks, give me the player option in year 4. So if I'm still rolling, I can get back into free agency again in my prime. I love it. I love it for the Raptors. I kind of wanted the Knicks to go after him because I think the Knicks need a point guard in the absolute worst way. But it's a great deal for Fred VanVleet. Great deal for the Raptors.
Well, Rachel, it's not everything, it's not something, it's not nothing. This is a beautiful thing. You watching a guy who did get drafted. On draft night, guys look forward to get drafted, but now Fred VanVleet showing guys that never got drafted, especially in this year's draft, to never give up. And much props to Masai Ujiri for taking a chance on a guy like Fred VanVleet. And Nick Nurse actually giving him an opportunity to go out there and prove himself. But you got to give a lot of props to Fred VanVleet because, like you said, he betted on himself. And I follow him on social media, and he always have the emojis of the dice, and he rolling the dice. And guess what? He struck gold, man, and I'm proud of him because for the simple fact that he came out, he delivered. He's an underrated defender. He could get buckets, and this contract is well-deserved. So to the young fellas out there that didn't get drafted or still trying to find their way on the NBA roster, never give up because all you need is that one shot. And when that door opens, you got to make sure you capitalize on the opportunity like Fred VanVleet did. So he's giving us all hope, especially these younger kids that's coming up.
Absolutely. So impressed with him, the way he managed his own development and career. And this is everything, guys, for the Raptors, too, because, first of all, it speaks well of their system. As you said, Masai Ujiri, Nick Nurse, and everybody on that staff who worked with Fred to uncork all of his talents. And they lost Serge Ibaka. And if they had lost Fred VanVleet, too, that would have triggered such a sea change in that organization. So I think this is everything both for Fred and for the Raptors.